Nation, it is time for the Week 5 recap. We have Tyrol has some girlfriend aggro he's dealing with right now, but we have a special guest filling in. Want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I am formerly in Jigbas with Attitude. Currently Jesus on the first day because I'm buried. I'm dead and buried right now. It's nice to be here.
Yes, we got VJ filling in for Tyrol, and with that, let's get right into it. So, recapping off this last week, first match, me against Sean. What were your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this was an interesting game just because I think that you two are two of the better teams in the league and probably two of the like four favorites right now to maybe like win the whole thing. But a somewhat underwhelming 100 from you, and Sean just put up another good performance, 135. And I feel like, I mean, a lot of that was DJ Moore having the game of his life, but he just like I think like he has a very deep roster, and he has guys that can give him like mid to high teens like every day or every week. And someone's going to do it for him. Like even though Justin had a bad day because he got hurt, he still found a way to get 135. So like his team is just deep, and I think on your side, I don't know, it's tough. Like Henry seems to be somewhat up and down this year. Usually he picks up steam as the season goes on, but I also know that he's over that career like 1,800 carries mark, where then like you running backs just fall off a cliff. So I don't know. I don't know if this is going to be like not the typical Derrick Henry year where he becomes like like he no one wants to tackle him once it gets slightly cold. So like I think you had a tough week where your guys just didn't perform. You played Taylor on his first game back, and he just got like no carries. So that's kind of like my
Yeah,
feeling about this game. Yeah.
Tyrell sent me a text message and he goes, "What if Jonathan Taylor doesn't play?" And I go, "DJ Moore put up 45 on Thursday. Like, Jonathan Taylor needs to have a big game for it to be in it. So definitely rolling the dice, but I feel like I needed to."
Yeah, yeah, it was tough. I mean, you also, I think one of your better draft picks has been like taking Herbert when you took him, and like you had him on a bye this week, and so like you were already a little bit against the odds. You're dealing with like your first wave of like some star players being out, so it was tough. And actually, I mean, I'm looking at it, and you still had him go 34. You still had Sam Howell go 34. So you didn't lose because of your quarterback. You
Right.
really did lose because of your other players not really putting up equal numbers. Even though Sean's quarterback Stroud only had 19.
Yeah,
Like
the
he had
flyer on Howell.
he had
What
he
a
had the best day from a quarterback from his wide receiver too. So that's pretty nice because he played more at the wide receiver too.
All right, moving on to match number two. Now, this one was just an absolute battle. I'm not going to lie. I think you two have pretty strong teams this year, but it seemed like this one you were both just trying to lose. Um,
Dude, yeah.
McCaffrey obviously didn't have a crazy game, and Arcane solid, but tough moving forward with the injury bug. It was looking like a great waiver pickup, but we'll see how long it goes. But um, George is I feel like he's had pretty decent defenses all league, and he made some comments last weekly recap. So tough when your defense is like your fourth highest scoring though, and they aren't the Cowboys defense. So hopefully, both your squads produce a little bit more moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. Like looking at it, obviously a Shane on the IR, like moving forward is super tough. But I like George's team this year, and this was just like I told George in the chat. This is a war of attrition, and somehow I won. I had no expectations to win, but to win with 93 is just pure luck. So yeah, George has a good team. Underperformed. Playing Jordan Love is a killer when Burrow decides to finally have a Burrow game. So that's I really do. I feel like I did not deserve to win this one, but I got very lucky.
Yeah, wow, really does come down to if he had the faith in Burrow, things could have been different.
Yeah, yeah, really. That's tough. That's tough to do because it seems like he's injured, and honestly, like I may have done the same thing if I were in his position.
All right, moving on to game number three. Tyrell versus Travis. What are your thoughts
All
on this
right,
one?
Tyrell and Travis. Honestly, like a close battle, but a somewhat weirdly 117. Like I feel like Tyrell is always projected in the 120s, like every single week. So I guess technically his team underperformed this week, but and did enough to somehow get it done. Um, the one thing I'll say about this one is it's weird, and I think it looks like it probably comes down to, but seems to be the story of the league this year is like one player can carry you to a win. We've had like a lot of teams have a guy just go absolutely sick. We've had like so many like 40-point games and beyond. Jamar Chase, 44-7, won him this week because if you just take a quick scroll and look at the matchup,
Yeah.
you would think that Trav won this week. I mean, he gets like a tough going from his running backs, but you look across the aisle and Tyrell has the same, like not a good running back performance. Yeah, he lost in quarterback, but then it looks more consistent um, down the line as you get like deeper to the flex and to the defense. But it's like it's just that 44-7 from Jamar just like carries you to a good week no matter what the rest of your team does.
Yeah, I always like it when guys are getting at least double digits, and Tyrell had his QB and Jamar hit double digits, and that was the
Right, like and Evan McPherson was his third highest scorer. Like that's
yeah.
hilarious that your court kicker is your third highest and it gets you the win. Um, but yeah, 12 and a half from Dobbs hurts Trav a lot. And then yeah, you have to tip your cap to Jamar like just going off.
Yeah. All right, match number four. This ended up being actually a very high scoring game. 126. Paul loses to Bellis, still with the rapist name. I know if Tyrell were here, he would be saying Bellis has got to swap the name. Doesn't even have Deshaun Watson on the team
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah, it's
Bad.
problematic, but honestly the name's hilarious.
So bad juju, but I guess good juju this week. Washington Commanders, tough start, like right off the rip for Bellis. You got um, oh, and Paul could have started Justin Fields in that game too. So kind of I guess that was the difference, right? 11
Yeah,
points
that would have got.
for
I mean,
yeah,
he lost by about 9. It looks like, and that would have
11
been
points
that
right
would have
there.
cleared him. Yeah, I mean, no,
So
it's 9. No, it's about 9. It would have been. I mean, I'm not doing quick decimal math well right now, but it looks like he probably would have eked it out. But 27 to
yeah,
30,
he would have had it. It's
he would have had it. Yeah.
I think so.
So that's real tough. That's that hurts the bottom line for sure. Because I do think Paul is a good team, but
Yeah, both guys in this game,
can come together.
lot of points. Like to my nod on trying to hit double digits, like Bellis had everyone hit double digits with the exception of the minus from the defense. And then Paul's team had a lot of guys go
Yeah.
for double digits too. And I mean,
Yeah, he really did. He really
Kittle
did.
finally had like big breakout game. Kind of when you draft him, you know it's maybe not every game, but you're kind of penciling one in. Tough
Mhm.
for that big Kittle game to end up being a loss.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think it's really tough when you score well above league average, and you look at your team at the end of the day, at the end of the matchup, and you say, I beat the quarterback matchup by 12, which is a big factor in our league, especially with a completion bonus. If you can get a nice gap in quarterback, that goes a long way. So you beat the quarterback by 12. Your defense had 12 itself, and you're going up against Nick, who can't seem to get away from a negative defense. He really should just start no one this, and he goes -5, and you still lose. Like that is really tough. I do feel like that's a hard loss given all the guys that go over 10 and that kind of setup on the matchup.
Yeah, you hate to see it. Hopefully, Paul has brighter games ahead.
I think he does because I think his roster is solid. I really do.
All right, moving on to game number five. Fuller and Aiden.
Yep.
A little bit of a bloodbath here.
Yeah, I mean this one, like I hate to say it because I feel like Aiden just has a game every year, at least one where he goes super low, and it's just like he got hurt with the Richardson injury, like that does really make it hard. but or difficult. What should make him feel better is it doesn't matter what Richardson did. He would have lost the game.
Yeah.
So I mean, Fuller has a good showing from everyone, and then I gotta sit here and stare at 34-4 from FTN. So like, good for you. That's fantastic. And then he gets 23-6 from Pickens. Like that's a great game as well. So yeah, hats off. Like really good showing from Fuller's team. Um, Kind of more like the classic kind of Fuller rundown that we usually see. That I don't know. I mean, I'd have to check the previous matchups, but I don't know if we've seen like this good of a game from his team yet this year. Maybe he had that one close loss that was tough, but 136 might be as high.
Yeah, no, he's definitely firing on all cylinders. And
Yeah, this is a good match for him.
you look at Aiden's team too, and definitely hung some points on the bench, but you're right, it was not going to matter. If Aiden could have hindsight
Yeah.
picked all the right guys, Fuller's team was just firing.
Yeah, it's tough. And I feel like Robinson's had some good games. Brian Robinson's had some pretty good games going so far this season. And 6'3" is tough to get from him. So like you might kind of, and then CD Lamb with 6'9". That's hard to deal with, given that he has to start P Ryan. Um,
hmm
so that's probably what ended up making it look that bad in the end. But yeah, it's just a tough week. You move on. You had no chance of winning, given the output from everyone.
In the final matchup, another absolute bloodbath here, and the weekly high scorer. Barry's team has arrived, and it is looking something fierce.
Yeah.
You just look across the line, and everyone can get you a touchdown. Everyone can kind of have a pretty big week. And I think Bill has a decent team. He's been moving guys a lot. I know Hawkinson, I think, is a great spot at tight end, but he's been keeping
He just traded
Eckler.
Hawk though.
What was that?
He just traded Hawkinson.
Oh, really? That's right. Yeah, so we'll see what Bill's team is looking like moving forward. But I know he has not wanted to move Eckler. I think a lot of people have kind of been fishing, seeing Billy have a tough start, but we'll see. You gotta string together some wins. It's great having guys coming back, moving forward, that are gonna play late in the season, but it's if you're not in the dance of the playoffs, it's really tough to just be playing for not last when you got a good team.
Totally agree. Yeah, I think James's team is the team of the moment just because of like some of the moves he's made, which I think we're going to get to later. And then I think I think Bill's team looks a lot better going forward from this week. Like I don't expect him to put up another 89. I don't think he's like that kind of team where you're like, okay, he's not going to win games. I know he's 1-4 right now, but I don't think like this is his team moving forward.
Yeah, no, I agree. So that finishes the recap. So our next section, we're gonna go into the state of the league, and get some thoughts on how VJ is thinking the league is shaping up, who he thinks the contenders are, and some thoughts on those teams. Who you want to
Yes,
start us off with?
yeah, so this started just by like I just before I came out, just like looking at all the teams, and I'd like to start with the Bears team, which I kind of we just alluded
Yep.
to. But I think there's like four kind of like perennial contenders. That's not to say that I think they're the only teams that can win the league, but I think they're the four like by a decent margin, far and away, most likely teams to win the league based on a combination of current record and roster moving forward, with like roster moving forward kind of the more important one. So with Barry's team, he literally is like Mr. Stud. He has like Allen squared. He has Josh Allen and Keenan Allen. He has Tyreek and he has Mr. Swift, Travis Kelsey. So like I think those guys really anchor his team moving forward, and then he's got solid depth. So like that's kind of just like my quick kind of take on James's team. I think he's one of the four contenders in the league, and really anchored by like those four very very solid studs.
Yeah, and I think kind of piggybacking on that, like Travis Kelsey was his first round pick. Tyreek Hill was a first round pick. I think if you could redo the draft and okay, you're Alvin Kamara, you're gonna be done with the like kind of bad suspension time and just get him playing. case to be made for him being in like the first or second round. And then his actual second round was like Josh Allen, so he has definitely made some trade moves to kind of enhance his team. And while we're here, I think we just go into it. So put something together. I'm zoomed in as far as we can, but this is on the left. This was James Berry's draft order. So just round one, round two, round three, moving down. And then here we kind of have his initial starting lineup week one based on all the players he's drafted and people moving forward. If we look at his team, he's got Kelsey, Allen squared, Rashid White, Zach Charbonnet, and the Saints. And outside those six, everyone has been shipped out. Now, a lot of those guys are getting playing time. Four of the six are still starting, but man, having Tyreek Hill and Kamara essentially added to your initial starting group, wow. Like, didn't really lose anyone else starting. I guess lost D Hop and um, Mixon for this is a typo here. For Tyreek and Kamara is essentially what I'm seeing, despite the deep, in addition to the deep bench. So yeah, certainly making moves.
Yeah, 100%. And I think do we want to talk about those moves later, or do we want to jump into kind of those moves he's made right now?
We can dive into some now.
Okay, so yeah, I think that like I agree, and I don't know if you'd agree about like the way that Barry was on on draft day when as we were live. He seemed like he had a very like thought out plan of how he wanted to go about drafting. He seemed very sure of his picks. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I was actually chatting with him recently, and I think he did a number of mock drafts, and
Yeah,
the one that kind of landed the best in his mock drafts, he had Josh Allen, or sorry, Travis Kelsey, Josh Allen.
right.
And a wild card move to not take a wide receiver or a running back in the first 2 rounds, like really out there going tight end QB. But man, it looks like it is working for him. And to go uh, those two to start, tight end QB, and then also have Tyreek Hill and Kamara while still having everyone else that you had in like your starting lineup is pretty great.
Yeah.
Oh, Tyler Lockett was another one that he added.
Well,
That's right.
I think to that like to that point, he ended up with those guys in his team, and I don't know, I don't believe this was his plan from the start to like draft this way and then make moves for these guys. I don't know how you would be able to plan that element out, but
Right.
he very methodically moved players that he didn't like long term to try and like set up at what seems to be at this point like this ultimate vision of a team that just has like a lot of guys that can go off on any given day.
Yeah.
It might not be, and I'm like probably is not the deepest team in the league, but he has undoubtedly the most studs. So like very early in the year when uh, Eckler goes down. He picks up Kelly, spends some waiver bucks on it, and then he trades Kelly and Khalil for Alvin Kamara when he's still not playing. So thinking long term. And then the next move that he makes is he goes and gets from Bellis. He goes and gets DK Metcalf for Pickens and Laporta. And to your point, he drafted Kelsey first round. So he picked up Laporta in the draft, knowing he was going to trade him. So he goes and gets DK. And then
I think he
his
actually got
next move.
Laporta from Billy. I think Billy had him.
No, I'm almost positive he drafted Sam Laporta because there was no trade for Sam Laporta before
Gotcha.
he traded him to uh, the rapist. Um, and then let's see, where is his next trade? And then he goes and makes the blockbuster trade and trades DK, who he had picked up prior, and kind of let play in his team for a bit. And he trades DeAndre and Joe Mixon, and he goes and gets Tyreek Hill and Tyler Lockett, which obviously Tyreek is the blockbuster there.
Yep.
But Lockett's a great pickup because he has Keenan Allen and Tyreek Hill, and then he gets to play Lockett at the flex, who's like a true boomer bust guy. So he has a very good team now, but I think it was a combination of draft and trade, and he was very methodical about the way he went about that.
Yeah, certainly a contender this year.
Mm-hmm. So second contender would be Sean,
Sean, let's talk
right? Which
about
is, I mean, like, granted, this is
Yeah,
very dependent on a key player.
the Wolf of
So
Waller
Sean,
Street.
yes. So Sean is a good team, and we got the first overall pick, and he takes Jefferson. The IR stint could like drastically change his team long term, depending on how long Jefferson's out. Um, but it's interesting because for me, he's just like he's got depth, like he's just got guys to play. He's got options, and that honestly works out well for a guy that does not make trades in this league. So like he's drafting well out of necessity because he knows it's waiver wire or bust after draft day. So like I think he did really well, which he typically does more often than not to draft across the board pretty solidly. So he hit the mark a lot this year. So he's got a lot of depth, from my opinion. So that's why I feel like he's one of the contenders. And then with Jefferson, once he comes back, you've got the best receiver in the league.
Yeah, definitely a solid team. I think Mostert's going to be end up being a great draft pick for him. DJ Moore is certainly earning his bread, and yeah, it really does. Like he's got a scary team, but without Jefferson just puts it over the edge where you're really terrified.
Right. But I do think he's also the linchpin. Like if for some reason he gets shut down or he doesn't come back until way too late and he's not the same for the rest of the year, I think that really hurts his chances of winning the league just because he's such a performer and he can give you big numbers pretty much every week.
Right. All right, who you got next?
Tyrell is the third of the four teams I think are like favorites right now.
Yeah, Tyrell has a terrifying team. I might
Yeah, he's
say
wide
his
receiver
team.
U to me. Yeah, because he
Yeah,
has Devontae and Jamar. But he also that's like doesn't explain fully his team. He's got guys pretty much everywhere. He might be the deepest team in the league. I'm not positive if he is across all positions, but he's in a guy off. He might have the most guys. I think he's got the most guys.
yeah,
Dak, I don't trust as a real quarterback, but I think as a fantasy one, he's probably fine.
right.
Um, Kyron Williams is a little touchdown dependent, but that might not matter. I think he gets enough touches where it probably doesn't matter week in, week out. And then Jamar and Devontae is one of the scariest things I think this league has ever seen from a wide receiver position, although rivaled by Tyreek and Keenan. I think that it's interesting we have those four wideouts on the same team or on two teams,
Yeah.
like across two teams this year. That's very interesting to me.
Wow.
Um, I think like you could tell me one of those pairs is better than the other, and you could probably sway me because I feel like that's like take your pick. But yeah, Tyrell's team is insanely good, and then he has Mark Andrews. So like if we're comparing to Barry, Barry's got Kelsey, he's got Mark, and then he's got options. Like he's got three receivers between the two on his bench and his flex that are projected 11 or higher. And then he's smartly got Miles Sanders on the bench. So, but he still has choices. He still has depth. I think he's one of the contenders in the league.
Yeah, I think Tyrell's team looks the scariest on paper right now to me, and I think you're like wide receiving core certainly up there in contention for best in the league. And then RB wise, similar boat. And I mean, he's gone through a stable of people. I think James Cook he had initially, but James Conner and I think Kenneth Walker, he moved both of those guys, and
Yeah,
he could because he picked up Kyron Williams on waivers and
on
might be
waivers.
one of
Yeah,
the
week one, right? Did he pick him
yeah
up week one? Yeah,
week one
that
for
was a
like
smart
2 to 300, and the steal was there was a wide receiver that Barry got that everyone thought was the move, but I think this Kyron
play.
Williams might end up being an even better move. So, yeah, Tyrell is certainly a team to watch out for. When everyone is projected to go above 12 points for position players, and then your
Yeah,
tight end is also like Mark Andrews,
right.
like, yeah,
Yeah, dude, he's like Mr. Projection this year. I think every week he's probably got the highest projection. We know that means nothing at the end of the day,
right.
but it goes to show like the expectation for a lot of players on his team. All right, man. And this is not pandering at all, honestly. The last of the four contenders, I do think is your team.
The
With some
highest of the
caveats.
two and threes.
With some caveats. I also think like it's hilarious because your team is built on your horses, like the team is aptly named. But I think it's hilarious that you are Mr. AI and you're basically trying to take a stagecoach to the championship. Like you're just putting the horses in front. and you're saying like, take me home, right? So you have Bijan and Derrick Henry. Bijan was a slight risk for sure in the first round because he was a rookie. But the hype was definitely there, and he's come through. He looks electric on the playing field. So yeah, like your team, I think is really good, and it's anchored by the horses. Plus Herbert, which was a great pick. Like as long as his health kind of evens out, which I'm sure it will. With what was it, the hand? Um, I think he'll be okay. Maybe it's not the hand, and I'm an idiot. But I think your chances at winning the whole thing really do lean on Jonathan Taylor's usage and health as the year goes on. And like, does he end up getting one, the touches, and two, the production that like we're used to seeing from him before he got injured?
Yeah.
Because that's kind of going to be, I think, the decider for how good your team is. If you end up flexing an RB2 on a bad day, you're going to be hard to beat. I
Yeah.
don't know.
I
I don't know if you have thoughts on your own team, even though that's kind of a weird question to ask. But
yeah,
yeah,
no,
I think
I
you're the last of the contenders.
I know we're going to talk about trades in a little bit too, but I when I go into the draft, I go in with a plan, and sometimes things go to the plan, some things don't go to the plan. But when things do go to the plan, I am certainly looking at like the playoff week matches ups maybe more than I should. And I totally understand you have to make the playoffs to get there, but
Hmm.
I am a finish top three, finish bottom three. I am not finishing in 4 to 10. Like I'm either
Hmm.
gonna Jonathan Taylor's not gonna play a lot and it's gonna be like a season loser and will be scraping to not be shotgunning,
Yep.
or he is the stallion that he can be, and Derrick Henry stays afloat despite the over the kind of the RB hump, if you will.
Yep.
And then between Brendan Ayuk, T. Higgins, and Hollywood Brown, like we just got to get hot on some key weeks in December. So that's kind of my strategy going in. And I know people want to move people around and whatnot, but for me, when people are kind of making trades, I like having like three RBs and trying to go RB at the flex. I think it's
Hmm.
like a higher floor, if you will. And I had like Devonte Adams one year was like first round pick and was an absolute stud. Got me to the playoffs and like lost or got me to the semifinals. Lost because he just had a very low, no targets, and they won the game. It was just everyone was stopping him, and I feel like running backs aren't quite like that. And in terms of the receivers, I think that maybe I think everyone is kind of like number two on their team, right? With like
Hmm.
Higgins being two to Chase,
Right.
Ayuk being two to Debo. But that being said, I think that the boom potential, like they can go out there and have a week like a number one. So it's
Yep.
not consistent, but that is kind of my going in my recipe. And so it's like it's tough for me to trade because when I'm trading stuff, I'm moving away from that recipe that I kind of like going in. And then if it is a trade for like a running back for running back, it's like someone is just getting a worse running back here. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. No. Fair. And then we are going to dive into kind of like trade approaches. But yeah, no, I agree with a lot of the stuff you said about your team. Um, I think like those receivers can probably bury you or like kind of just pad those stats for you to help your running backs on any given week. So it depends on how the things play out. But yeah, I do think that you're probably the final of like the four favorites.
yeah. And I want to give two quick nods here. I think your team, I mean, 4-1. There's definitely been some luck, like winning with 93 this last week. I dream of winning with
Yeah.
93. Instead, I get these
Yeah.
130-point losses. But I think you have a pretty solid team, and I know you weren't super happy with it to start, but it's it, McCaffrey has just been an absolute unit, and maybe a lot of
Yeah.
the reason that you are 4-1, you could say, is to McCaffrey. But God, come last couple weeks between Mahomes and McCaffrey, that's a 100 burger you could put up between the two of them, and it's like I don't know. You just got to kind of
Yeah.
be hot at the right time, and
Yeah.
that boom is like as high as I think it as anyone.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, we can yeah, discuss my team because I don't know that a championship is a realistic expectation. I think we'll see how things play out. But I am somewhat lucky to be 4-1. I think a lot of it. based off of CMC. What I wrote down, like my note for my team was, it's the largest cliff like this league has ever seen from a
Mm.
roster standpoint. It really is, and now Shane's on the IR, but it really is. It was like Mahomes, CMC, um, a Shane, and then I just got Evans, but beforehand it was Etienne. Like I have no one after that.
I guess
So I think that that's going to be my downfall in the end. Is I need my big hitters to go big, and they're not going to do it every week.
what I totally hear you, but at this point, they don't need to go big every week. But being at 4-1, you just kind of need a couple. And I just think that between Mahomes and
Yeah.
McCaffrey, they might have big weeks independent, but they're
Mm-hmm.
probably good for throughout the rest of the season, 2 to 3 more games where they hit together, and that's 6, 7 wins, which will probably get you in. And then
Yeah.
again, like like postseason, right? Starting lineup,
Yep.
Mahomes at QB is as good as anyone out there.
Mm-hmm.
McCaffrey and Arcane at RB is
It's
as
it's a
elite.
Shane.
Like, well, like right now he's on the IR, but he could come back later. And again, like you have the wins to kind of get you there. And then wide receiver again, DeAndre Johnson hasn't played like a snap at all, but him and then between Mike Evans and Judy, when your team is all playing,
Yeah.
it is a scary team.
Well, I to that point, I think week 11 will be the checkpoint for my team. Like, if I'm still in an okay spot at week 11, I think all my guys should be healthy, and I should be
Yep.
able to have like a Shane in the mix. Ideally, like Evans panning, like being healthy. I think Deontay Johnson is back at that point. And then hopefully, like I can, flex like a tank or someone else. So yes, the roster could look markedly better come week 11. It just depends on, am I 4 and 6 going into week 11, or have I caught a couple dubs because of, to your point, like my big guys.
Right.
Yep.
And then one we
Um.
can go kind of quick, but because he is
Yeah.
also 3-2 ahead of me, and he has probably had one of the better teams he's seen in quite a while. The commish George, I
Yep.
think he's got a pretty decent team as well, and
Yeah.
again has kind of gotten maybe some lucky breaks early on and kind of matchup in who he's going against, but just looking at the lineup, it's pretty scary. Like Tony Pollard and DeAndre Swift maybe haven't performed as much as you like would have liked, but I think Tony Pollard is still going to have a big season. I think he's absolutely due. He's got a lot of guys on the Eagles, which is not a bad team to have a bunch of guys on. I think it's so funny every time we talk about this that Brandon Aubrey doesn't have a photo. Only person we've ever seen that doesn't
Yeah,
have
it's
a photo there.
hilarious.
But
It's every time it's hilarious.
yeah, he's got a solid team. So
Yeah, I mean that's what I wrote down. Like and this is, I bet it's the best. I think it's the best commish squad we've seen. Like
yeah,
it's a good roster. Um and this is not a knock on Bellis. He's a two-time champ. But he might be as unlucky as Bellis is lucky. Like he lost this week, and he really shouldn't have. I mean, I guess like you say, you put up 88, you don't deserve to win. But I think like over the years, he does get somewhat unlucky.
yeah.
Sometimes the tight end draft strategy hurts him, but like he has a good squad this year, and I think that, like, I don't think his record is a fluke. He gets unlucky sometimes. So yeah, he has a really good squad. That was kind of my quick note on George. Was kind of like the best squad I think I've seen from him. Like a good draft, uh, and a good diversity of players.
I totally agree. And so moving on, and speaking of the commission, I know we've talked a lot about trades this week. I thought the trade chat and the poll and Fuller's info was pretty unbelievable. So I kind of want to walk through that and get your thoughts
Yeah,
on
that
some of
was that
these.
was very solid. That was very funny.
So Tyrell, fair and honest, willing to make deals. I agree. Tyrell proposes some stuff. I'm like, nah. He's like, no worries. I think I've made stuff happen with him before.
Yeah,
How about you?
yeah. I think like I agree with the assessment from Fuller. I think Tyrell can be tough to pin down a commitment. I feel like I
Mm,
feel like I get a lot of partial yeses from Tyrol, and then it doesn't work out. And honestly, some people may feel that way about me. So that would be fair. But like, yeah, I think he's fair and honest. Like, I don't think he's trying to take advantage of anyone, and he is willing to move guys. He's not someone who's like, well, I'm not trading anyone like worth trading, but
Yeah.
please give me your players. So I agree with that assessment. I just think sometimes he's tough to like get over the finish line when it comes to making the deal.
Yeah, I think he typically makes trades because I think he's pretty good on the waivers. So he typically has guys that might not be a
Right.
like starter, but is someone like a starter for another team, and so people are
Yeah.
kind of hitting him up.
Yep.
Romero will send a two-page write-up on why the numbers don't make sense, and I lost it when I read that because that is
Yeah.
me to a T. I
Yeah.
will
That was
see the
hilarious.
trade, and again, I think I mentioned I have the plan, and it typically moves away from the plan, and I'll crunch all the numbers and tell myself as like why it doesn't work out, but yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty accurate. Definitely on the low end of like career trades in the league. But always has like a very sound reasoning as to why the trade just doesn't work. We just can't get it done. I'm sorry. So yeah, I think that was pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Um, and
Uh,
very funny.
Next up, we have VJ, also fair and honest, willing to make deals if he's in a pinch. I would agree. I think that I have don't make a ton of deals. I think when I am dealing with people, you are one of the most reasonable people in that I think when you're trying to make a trade work, it seems like you're looking at both teams and like, okay, this makes me better and this makes them better and this makes sense to like do, which sometimes it seems like I'm like, why would I ever want to do this trade? Like, it
Mm.
makes you're giving me two guys that I'm not going to start. So yeah, I think you're very fair, pretty solid. I don't make a lot of trades, but if I ever do, you're on my list of people that I think could probably make something happen with.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely that's like a kind sentiment from Fuller. I try and be fair. Like I do try and look at what does this guy need? And there's a lot of times where I'll look at a player on a roster that I want, and then I kind of look over um what their needs are, what that guy's needs are, and like if I don't have those players, I kind of move on, which is tough because like I might want a player, but I feel like I can't give away what I want or what I'm willing to get that piece back. So yeah, and I agree with the willing to make deals if I'm in a pinch because I'd prefer not to trade. I try to draft and ride, but
Right.
historically, I think I probably make like a trade and a half a season because invariably I'm a dumb idiot during draft day, which I think was
Panic.
the worst this year. Yeah, absolute panic. So like that happened. So I think I probably average like a trade and a half a year. But yeah, I would say accurate. Travis was what was he? Coin toss. Most likely won't respond.
Yep.
Thoughts on that, Rose?
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. I feel like I maybe once a year Travis will try to hit me up, and I feel like we'll negotiate for a little bit. It's not going anywhere, and then an hour later I'll see a trade has been accepted, and it'll be someone that we were chatting about. So I think that when he has someone he wants to move on from, he kind of just ships them out.
Yeah, dude, I think that's a good assessment by Fuller. I never think that he's unfair. I just think it's really like you just have to catch him in the right moment where you send something over and he likes it and he goes, yeah, like send it over or I'll send it over. And then you get it accepted and processed. Because I think it really is like it's like an eclipse. You just gotta get your moment and take it. He's always fair, but it's hard to like get the right get that timing right, I guess.
Right. James takes time, crunches the numbers, most likely will get a guy he snagged at the right time off waivers, but numbers usually add up. Um, so yeah, I think that James is one of the more methodical traders. I think he spends a lot of time thinking about trades, making some trades happen. I think he's pretty good too at um, knowing what other people want. Like you might say what you want, but really knowing, oh, this guy's a like Broncos fan, so like I'm gonna uh, throw like Judy in there or
Yeah.
something. And I don't know, he's pretty good at recognizing what needs to happen to make a deal get done.
Yeah, I think like agree with Fuller's take, agree with your points. And like the one thing I would say to like encompass him is like, and I don't think it's a take advantage situation, but I think it's like James knows how to tell you what you want more than you know what you want with the fantasy trades. He's like, you know what, but like this guy, he's gonna do this for you, and you need this coming back. So maybe to that point of like trying to figure out what the other team needs. I think he knows how to play that. He knows which guys to kind of pick and choose, um, and he's willing to stay on the line to make the trade. Like you don't have to worry about intermittent responses from him. So yeah,
All right, we
agreed.
got Bill makes deals happen. Depends what mood he's in. Yeah, I think that sounds about right. I feel I haven't made a ton of deals with Billy over the past, but he makes a lot of trades. I'll watch and I'll be like, oh, that was not a
Yeah,
bad trade. Oh,
yeah,
that
he
might have made
does.
his team better. Ooh, and there's that one trade on the year that's always a head scratcher for me.
Yes, and I think that is a product of making a lot of trades. That you're gonna have one that's kind of like people look at it and go, that I don't know if that makes sense. But if it makes sense to Bill, it makes sense.
Right.
I think that I agree. Makes deals happen. Depends what mood he's in. I don't believe I've made a lot of trades with Bill, but I think we talked about like the trades James has made to make his team like a contender. I think Billy has made his team a lot better through trades as well. Like I
Yeah.
don't think he's going to be the 1-14 that he is right now going forward. He's got some guys getting healthy, like with Eckler and stuff. And I think he like made his team better by moving on from some guys. So I expect Bill to do better throughout the course of the season because he's made some deals happen and maybe according to Fuller has been in the right mood so far this year.
All right, we got Sean. Don't bother immediate death.
Enough said. We can move on. This man, I don't think has made a trade in like 5 years.
So I
Don't
I
trust the
gotta
man.
say on the other side of it, and this is not gonna be a popular like opinion or I made a trade with Sean when he had a super stacked team because I had a guy on bye and I needed to not do the shaka or the punishment. And I traded away a way better player for a way worse player that was playing that week, but it fucking worked. And I didn't get the punishment that year. And Sean won the whole thing, but you know what? I'll take it.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that to be honest, but I get it. I get that. I do agree with the take that like sometimes you need to look at what is your need and not worry about how much better you're making the other team. Like I do agree with that, that like you kind of have to focus on yourself and you can't worry if you just handed like the Chicago Cubs a Roldis Chapman going into the playoffs. I think you kind of have to like accept that and do what you need to do. So like in that instance, it worked out for you, it worked out for Sean, and that is the goal of a trade. Is like
Right.
we both want to feel like we're walking away improved, and a good trade is probably one where you're a little upset to let go of that player. To that point, actually jumping back really quick to Bill, I admire that he has like zero attachment to his guys. Like
Yeah.
he'll make a deal. Like I really do respect that because like I will probably there are probably times where I don't make a deal because I just like don't want to trade a certain player and I
Same
have to be
boat.
like, hey, I'm sorry, I don't think I'm going to trade this guy, even though they're probably offering me a good deal at the end of the day. So I respect Bill's lack of attachment to his roster. All right, yeah, Sean imminent death. That's my take. I agree with Fuller.
Yep. We
I
got
think overall, like, just don't even bother.
yep. After that we got George only does two-player minimum and will happen out of the clouds. Be ready at any given moment.
I, I like probably agree with certain aspects of that, of like maybe a little bit out of the clouds where he'll just throw an offer out there. But I feel like that's so specific of a thing. Like that happened to Fuller with George. Like that is definitely
Right.
from an incident between them trying to make a trade. So I think that was very funny to read. But I do agree. Be ready at any given moment. You could just be going about your morning, having your cup of coffee, and you get a little trade offer from George from the commish himself. So I agree. I agree. Any moment it's possible.
Yeah, I feel like again, like I might not get a lot of trade offers from George, but when I do, it seems like he wants that person, like whoever it is. And so like be ready. It's like
Interesting.
he'll be
Yeah.
willing to kind of make something work, but you do have to be ready for it.
Very true. But I also think that he understandably has his lines where there's certain guys he's not going to move off from, which
Right.
I respect.
Paul likes the big names and will make a deal if he's focused on fantasy at the given moment.
My favorite part about that is focus on fantasy at the given moment because I don't remember the last time I did reach out to Paul to make a trade, but I do feel like it's just like it's a total shot in the dark as to like is he just going to be like wanting to respond to do fantasy talks or like is he not around, so I really think that's funny. But I do I do think he likes the big names and he has I don't think a season's gone by where he hasn't made a trade, so he's a guy to look to if you're trying to make a move because he's definitely willing, he's shown he's willing.
Yeah. Next up, we got Aiden. Total coin toss. Unpredictable. We'll use others in the league to discuss your trade offers. Be advised. I think that is pretty great. Aiden has a couple times like reached out and I've chatted with him about some trade stuff, but um, yeah. I don't know. I don't know if do you does Aiden make a lot of trades? I actually don't have a great sense on his trade volume.
I don't know. That's a really good question. I also feel like um, there's been a few years where Aiden's had some really rough teams, and I think it's
Mm,
hard to make trades. This might be like more of a isolated thing, but I think like maybe a few years back, I was trying to move for one of Aiden's players when he was kind of in a rough situation. And there's probably a split opinion on like 3-for-1s in the league, like how people feel on that. But I think I was offering something along those lines because there was really only one player on his team that I wanted, and he felt like he couldn't make that deal and move off of his stud. So I kind of get that, but I think that maybe Aiden's trade history is colored by sometimes his rosters aren't deep enough to make the trades. Uh, which I, even though I traded Etienne, I felt this year when I was looking at trades to make, like no one wants my wide receivers. So sometimes that makes it hard, I think, to make trades.
I would agree. I think that's a pretty apt. It's not. It's like you want to try to trade two of your players for like their stud, which is going to make your team better and hopefully theirs, but it feels bad getting rid of your top guy. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it's a hard sell when you're not getting someone back of somewhat equal value.
right. And then we got Bellis, fair and honest, willing to make deals.
Yep.
I feel like that's pretty
Yeah, I
standard.
yeah, I would say that's it's very very accurate. Like kind of the theme of Fuller's assessment. I think he did a good job with pretty much everyone. I don't think he was like egregiously wrong at all with anyone. Bellis is fair and honest. Makes a good amount of trades. Willing to talk shop. Willing to um like adjust off of maybe his initial offer if like there's another avenue to find a trade.
Yep. And then I think Fuller didn't put himself on there, but I think Fuller is pretty solid in the trades. I think the one thing that'll get me is when it's not quite right, the throw on the like bench players, and I'm just like, I'm never gonna play this guy.
Yeah, that's always tough when you're trading a guy and they're like, dude, he's gonna maybe touch my flex one time, and
Yeah,
and it's just there's no value there. Yeah, it's tough. It can be tough.
but
Trying to
I
get
think
a stud is very hard if you don't have another stud to trade back.
yeah, I think Fuller typically makes a lot of trades, and I think he's pretty solid. Like he'll reach out
Yeah.
and he's big on the reach out.
Yes.
Don't just
Yeah.
blind blast him.
I think Fuller had like historically just inundates me, and I think that I might not be. I think sometimes I'm really responsive, but I think there's other times where like I sit on stuff for a little while. Fuller does not allow you to sit on things for too long. I mean, this kid just wears you down over time, and he's trying to make deals. Sometimes he'll wait. He'll let the matchup happen, and he'll let Tuesday roll around, and then you think you've made it through a day, and 2 o'clock rolls around and Fuller comes in, and he's looking to talk shop again. So I respect the hustle, and he hammers you if he wants to make a trade, like he will not fail for lack of effort. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to this. this upcoming week. Um, so leading off, we have me against Barry, and man, he like again projected 120, got a
Mhm.
bunch of guys. It is looking like a tough one. I think the good thing for me is I will have faced Barry, Sean, and Tyrell after this week, and I don't know if I face any of them twice. So we're kind of getting through the deaths.
You should face Barry a second time if he's your or third week matchup,
Well, I'm
unless your
facing Barry
schedule
this
is one of the
week.
one that's
I
you face.
face
Oh, sorry. Who'd you face week 3? Because you should face them again last week of the season if your
Travis. I
schedule is
lose to a
accurate.
lot.
Okay, I would say, well, it's okay. All right.
But for some reason too, again, I don't know why, but I face Fuller twice late in the season.
Right, you're one of the ones where your schedule is a little bit wonky, where that shouldn't happen.
Yeah,
So that's tough actually because both of you guys are going to have solid squads at that point. I think Fuller's squad will be formidable.
right.
Yeah. Battle of the contenders this week for sure. There's a much better projection right now for James. Just because you're sitting on some maybe tough matchups.
He's just got a lot of
And
guys.
and he's got dudes. I mean, he's got boys. It really is Allen's boys because he's got a squad. So Barry will be a tough matchup for the rest of the season. So even though I think you're a contender, it's a tough go. I'm taking Barry.
Yeah, certainly a tough one for me there.
Yeah.
Matchup number two, we've got you and Tyrell, another high scoring, high flying affair looking like.
Yeah. I'm going Tyrol. I think this is the start of my dissension. I think this is going to be a tough run while I wait for health across the board. I might squeeze out a win or two here or there. I haven't looked at my schedule going forward. There may be some lucky wins similar to last week. This will not be one of them. I think I'm losing this week.
Yeah, I think Tyrell's got an absolute squad, and I think the check marks are just so funny because I'm like, Patrick Mahomes and
Yeah,
Christian
dude.
McCaffrey can get you 100, and it's like check check, and then it's just Tyrell. It's like he
It's
does
all
the
Tyrell.
wide
Yeah.
receiver. I mean, Jerry Judy and Mike Evans not bad,
Right.
but Jamar Chase and Devontae Adams, like, ugh,
Yeah. And I
yeah,
waiver wired the Cleveland defense, which I love. I think
yeah,
they probably have some of the best defense in the league, to be honest. I think they should have a good season, but I can't play him this week. They're playing San Fran. That's death. So
yeah,
so I think he just continues to beat me down the line. He's got the one thing I thought when I looked at his team this week, the matchups are insane. I think he's got like 6 or 7 guys that are going against like 28th or worst in the league in that
ooh,
position. So he's got some solid matchups and he's got a better squad top to bottom. So I will be taking my second L of the season.
yeah.
Uh,
That is
this
Tyrell's
this
team is a
Saturday.
absolute wagon right now.
Yep. Yeah.
Um, all right, the commission, Paul. This one actually looking pretty close. Projected is within 6 points. Um, yeah, I think that the commission's had a good start, and will. I think if he wants to like continue, he's going to need to continue to rake in some wins. I don't know. Like I think Tyrell the wins are going to flow in. I think Barry the wins are going to flow in. I think if George wants to stay relevant and have any shot at like getting in the playoffs and potentially a bye, definitely going to
Yeah.
need a win here. And Paul's team 2 and 3, both these guys. I will admit after the draft I'm like ooh pencil them in for a W. Both these teams are scary, and
Yeah, man.
we'll see. A lot of guys that can score on both sides.
Totally agree. I think Paul is a dark horse. I think at this point in the season, like I do really like his team. I like the trades that he made. It's tough to move on from Tyreek, but I really understand the reasoning behind it. Um, and I think that like KJ Osborne could be a make or break. Like it's almost like if
Yeah,
Paul goes up, Sean goes down. If Jetta is going to be out for a little while and Sean will have to deal with life without Jefferson, I think that means KJ is probably having some decent flex number games and that could be Paul's opportunity to win some games. So this is definitely a key matchup for me. I agree with you. Um, for Kamish to stay relevant as a possible contender, and then for Paul to kind of start his challenge to be a true like playoff team and possible dark horse in the playoffs.
I also think it's pretty interesting when QBs face each other when they're facing each other in real life. I think it's also interesting. Paul has Cousins and Justin Fields in that Minnesota Chicago game, and it's like, who are you going to start? Really comes down
Ooh.
to how you think that game is going to go. Like,
Yeah, yeah, that's tough. I guess in an effort to remain like unbiased, I will not give my feelings on that matter, but that is a tough call because
yeah,
you have more often than not Mr. Consistent with the possible boomer bust based on recent history with your option on the bench. So that is a very interesting point
yeah.
there, Rones. Yeah.
So we'll see how
What
that.
decisions he has to make by Sunday at 1.
Yeah. We got Travis and Sean, another matchup, and I think that this
Yep.
week, just looking at all of them, at least so far, the matchups are looking a lot closer than previous ones. I think the
Right.
biggest blood is, I think Tyrell and Barry are again two forces, and we're up against them this week, so we'll see how we
Mm.
do. But another close one, Sean. Again, he's got a bunch of guys. I think he's got some people on bye this week or injured. I'm
I
surprised.
don't know that he
I
does.
guess
At least
114
not
seems
any
low,
like
but
key guys. It's just the fact that Jefferson's now on IR. His team looks so
that's
much
what it
different
is.
now. It just looks so different. That's the big change.
Yeah, so we'll see if Travis can sneak a win in while Sean is figuring out how to deal with the Jefferson IR.
Right. Yeah. Sean's team is a force. Like it's gonna be a tough one for Trav. But I think Trav's team is good. Sean's questionables with Waller and Olave are, a factor. Um, I still like Trav's team, and I could be proven so wrong. The move away from Amon Ra really does surprise me. I thought he had a like as it stood, a really
Yeah,
solid team. But I get the desire to pull for a Hawkinson at the tight end position that can give you 20 any week. Like he is one of the few tight ends in the league that can actually go for 20. So I get the move from that perspective. I think maybe it's just a lot of trust in Michael Thomas's health and the Saints offense as a whole. But that's going to be an interesting matchup. I'd probably still lean Sean, depending on injury news.
yeah, similar boat. I think lean in Sean, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah,
Diggs against the Giants could be a big
yeah.
bet of points for Travis, but
And who would have thought at the beginning of the year that we'd have a matchup of two quality teams starting Josh Dobbs and CJ Stroud? Like you
right?
couldn't yeah, never would have guessed that. So that's interesting as well. It'll be a fun matchup this week.
And Bellis Fuller, wow, Bellis with a projected 120 and looking really good across the board in terms of projections. Um, I'm kind of surprised that the Puka Cup combo has been working as well as it had. I feel like they would
Yeah.
start to cannibalize each other, and you really can't have both
Mm,
of them go for like two touchdowns in a game. But I mean,
right.
hey, as long as the Rams are doing good, he's in good shape. But man, if the Rams have a tough one,
Yeah, yeah, that's I love that you brought up that point because that's like I think that's the big standout with Bellis's team. He got Lamar Jackson back, which is like one of his boys. He loves Lamar. He's rocking the young running backs with Brees and Isaiah, and then he's got like father time with Adam Thielen. And then you're right, he is Laporta was a good move, and then he's relying on the Rams offense by really taking like the two guys that are getting targets for them. I will say if you're going to do that, you probably are best off doing that in a Mike Shanahan, Mike McDaniels, or Sean McVay offense. So I don't hate the play. We'll see if it works for him. And then Fuller's team is better than I think it was before he made a lot of the moves. But I do think I think Dallas gets the win this week.
yeah, pretty
I think
high
he gets the win
projection
this
for
week.
Bellis.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And I don't think that that's super inflated. Like I
Yeah.
like his roster this week. Yep.
All right, in the final matchup, we got Aiden and Billy, and wow, 2 point difference in the projected right now. Both teams' loss here is tough because when you're
Yeah.
having a tough season, you are lower on. You kind of look at the other
Right.
teams that aren't doing as well, and you're like, okay, got to get a win there. Like
Yeah.
if I'm Aiden or Billy, I got to get a win this week. This could be the
100%.
matchup of the week right here.
Yeah, yeah. This is like if you lose this game, you take the panic button out of the drawer and you place it on your desk and you say, "I'll look at you in a week." But it's definitely out of the drawer because Bill loses this game and he makes me look like an idiot for saying his team's gonna get a lot better. But also he has to start thinking, I'm 1-5. Like, do I have to worry about shotgunning, which is a really tough reality, I would assume. And then yeah, Aiden, like I think Aiden drafted relatively solidly. I think he's got some good guys. The Barkley injury's been tough, so and Montgomery was definitely a nice get by him. So I think like he has to win this week to realistically think that playoffs are in the future. So yeah, I this is the big match of this week.
I also love that it's like the two first round picks, Saquon and Eckler, are both like
Yep.
questionable, and it's
Yeah.
really that's gonna be a huge thing if one can play and one can't play. Like,
Right.
yeah. So that'll go over the recaps, and then we've got a parlay cooked up. We are currently 0-4, which means this one is absolutely going to be a lock.
Right. Right. We are. I guess the league as a whole is due for a parlay to just hit.
We're due. This is the one right here. I was
All right.
hearing the spread that we cooked up. Like, what misses? Nothing. They're all
Yeah.
they're
Yeah, I think what are we? We'll run through it real quick, and then we can talk about maybe what we're scared about, what we feel are just like Lock City.
so we have
So we have a 1 o'clock game, a 4 o'clock game, and then we got the Sunday night and the Monday night game.
to cash out as if. So leading off, yeah, we got the Dolphins minus
Did
13 and a
you
half.
already take it?
What was that? I
Did you already take it?
oh yeah, I
Oh, I
took it.
love that. I
I
love that.
locked it
That's
in. Yeah,
fantastic.
it's easy to display here too for everyone. But so yeah,
Yep.
Dolphins at home against the Panthers. Little southeast
Yeah.
action.
They'll take the
Dolphins have
cool
been
side.
yeah, Dolphins have been rolling. They're gonna continue to roll, and they're in the business of blowing out bad teams. I know the Chiefs are really good, and the Chiefs are like gracious and try to make all the games close and like let teams come in backdoor. Dolphins, everyone there wants a touchdown. McDaniels knows he's got to keep everyone fed to keep this thing going, so they're going to blow him out.
I couldn't agree more, dude. Chiefs have been there before. They don't need to murder teams. The Dolphins are on the ascension. They're here to make a statement and murder some teams. So I think minus 13 and a half at home is that's one that I am not worried about at the moment, especially with the way the Panthers play.
Then we also have the moving on to the 4 o'clock games. We got Patriots, Raiders in the under. Up here in New England country, a lot of roommates, all Patriots fans. One went to the game. The only advice that I am hearing is bet the under on games and bet the under on season wins. It is
Yeah.
absolute panic town in New England up here, and there's no way these teams get to 20 points each.
I mean, I would be floored, right? Anything can happen in the NFL, but under 41 and a half for Patriots Raiders feels like, you take it to the bank and you don't have to think about it. You put the money down. The Pats offense is seemingly atrocious, and their defense, even though they have some big losses, especially with Judon, I don't think their defense is bad, and I don't think the Raiders are good, or at least not that good. And Josh McDaniel is a terrible head coach. So I don't see this game going over 41 and a half. So I think that's why it's in here.
Yeah. Next up, we got the Bills minus 14, and again at home, big favorite, but Bills just lost, so they need a get right game. Um, and the Giants have just been absolutely hemorrhaging. Like if
Hmm.
you're a Phil Cohen Giants fan talking to Tyrell around, well, like oh, it's just a tough spot to be in.
Yeah, yeah, it's rough. I this game just somewhat scares me because I don't know. Um, uh, the Bills are weird. Sometimes they'll not really fully show up. Um, but I want to say I believe Josh Allen has 50 odd wins in the NFL, and I believe 40 something of them are by more than a touchdown. So like he wins games big.
Yeah.
So I like this play, especially on Sunday night in Buffalo. The Giants are not good. They won a lot of games by one score last year, similar to the Vikings. Like the regression is there to see for both those teams. They're going to lose this game, and I think they're going to lose it by more than two touchdowns.
And then finally we got the Chargers +3, and I like this one as well. I think this is going to be a close game, but I don't think that this gets
Mhm.
out of hand either way. And I know the Chargers don't have the greatest home field advantage, but not being
Right.
able to travel, it's still. I think the Chargers need to kind of get right, and this could be the game to do it.
Yeah. This is an adjusted line from +2, but I also like this is definitely the biggest. I think this is the biggest toss up
Right.
of
So
the parlay.
Monday, if you're really not
It's
feeling
gonna
it,
be
maybe
tough.
take that
Yeah.
cash out.
Yeah, it gives you a full like from when the Bills hit after you have a fantastic Sunday. It gives you a good 20 some odd hours to really decide where your nuts are and if you want to cash out. Because that one on Monday night would be a little bit scary for me. My guess is that the Chargers somehow blow it late and lose by one or two. So I think the adjusted line to three just gives you a little bit of leeway there. Um, but yeah, uh, that one's a little bit scary, but that's how we're going to wrap out the parlay.
Yeah, I think that sounds pretty right on Chargers covering it late, but that'll do it for the Week 5 weekly recap. Thank you, VJ, so much for filling in for Tyrell.
Yeah, man, it's been a pleasure. And thanks for having me, man.
Sweet. All right. Till next week. Take care, everyone.
Adios.